We want successful universities. Everything they do should be done on the basis of benefit, both for the university and for society.
I would love for universities to start engaging with society much earlier in the process of research as well as the process of teaching.
As the world in which we live constantly evolves, so do the demands that are placed on university research and education. As opportunities open up with the increased access that the digital world provides, the concept of universities as ivory towers of learning is increasingly seen as out of touch and out of place in the 21st century. The demands being placed on universities have never been greater, from the importance of ensuring that research will have an impact on the world in social and economic terms, to engaging with communities and attracting the next generation of researchers. So what are the aspirations for the engaged university of the future? Sophie Duncan is the Deputy Director of the National Coordinating Centre for Public Engagement. The NCCPE helps universities engage with the public. At their Engage 2013 conference in Bristol, Sophie explained more about the initiative and their ongoing consultation process.
The ivory tower isn't really an accurate description of universities today. There are thousands and thousands of academics working with society in lots of multiple ways. There was an amazing study looking at 36,000 academics, and a huge proportion of them reported doing really active engagement as part of their work. If I think about the future, I think I'd like to see a more porous university, but I use that term in caution. I think that a better way of bringing multiple knowledges together in order to solve some of the intractable issues in society would be really welcome and really valuable. And I think that porosity captures that for me, that you let more ideas in and you share more of the ideas that you're making and you begin to build ideas together. I think the one thing I'd like to see change in how universities work with society is just to be a bit more strategic and purposeful about the reasons that you're engaging in the first place, and then to create supportive structures to enable your staff and the partners that you want to work with, whoever they may be, to actually feed into that purpose and generate really useful and long-term relationships. The Engaged Futures consultation is all about trying to generate some tools to help universities and their partners think about what kind of engaged university do they want to be. And we thought it would be really helpful to draw on loads of great examples from outside of higher education, where perhaps people have found effective ways to work in partnership in ways that universities might want to emulate.
Here are the thoughts of some of those that attended and spoke at the conference on what the engaged university of the future would look like and the sort of changes that they would like to see taking place.
What we do is work with communities to develop research projects that are suitable for students to carry out as part of their degree programme. And the one change that I'm thinking about is how you actually link the research that students do in the community as part of their degree, how you make that socially relevant by working with communities. Also how students learn about community knowledge and about different types of knowledge. But how do you bring that back into the university? How do you link that into research excellence? How do you link the time that staff are putting into developing student skills that then long term will bring students forward as researchers and hopefully excellent researchers who will have an impact on society?
Sometimes what we need is a little bit of pressure from outside. So if I could change one thing, I would ask the decision makers outside universities, the funders, the government, to really push this agenda, to really give reasons why a university can no longer say, we'll engage with communities later, and they start saying we have to engage with communities now, so that where there's a bit of a university's culture that maybe isn't comfortable engaging with publics, they look at engagement and think this is something that all of our key stakeholders want us to address now, not a thing that we can say, well, that's a priority for a few years in the future.
There's a tradition of university research and university knowledge generation as being isolated within a university. Not everyone knows what a university does, so how on earth can we expect people who aren't part of that community to understand what a university does? So I'd like to see a greater understanding of what it is that universities do and us being able to articulate that more clearly.
I think one of the most important needs at this point in time is preparation and training of faculty members who see this as a central part of their teaching, research, and service work. That would be my primary recommendation, because I think faculty remain one of the core elements of an effective university, and often we assume that they know how to do this work, and I think that actually is not a correct assumption. So they really do need to be prepared well, and they need to be supported in doing this work.
I'd like to see more of interaction that is not top-down, learning that is two-way. Institutes of higher education actually committing to making change, not only in students but also in community. And you can't talk of change and social transformation unless you're out there in the community, because social transformation is not theory in classrooms and institutions. It has to be out in the open. It has to be a lived out experience. And that's what I'd like to see happening more and more.
Well, I certainly think that universities do have to have the space and the time to do the sort of thinking that no one else can do, the sort of thinking that leads to new breakthroughs in knowledge. But that quest for knowledge has to be informed at all times by the societal and world need. Universities therefore have to be open institutions in engagement with their communities, whether that be geographic or whether it be discipline-placed, whether it be sectors of society that need in some way new knowledge to transform them, or indeed the skills of graduates to do the jobs of tomorrow rather than today. Universities have to be open and porous institutions if they're going to serve the world in the best possible way.
My vision for a future engaged university is one where the university's governance, its research, its teaching all embraces members of the public, or it could be people from different countries or from businesses. People own the university, and the university shares and has a two-way relationship with all those different kinds of groups.
The thing that I would like to change is to put engagement right at the heart of how research is done, which for me means that the engagement side of things is fully supported. It's got training and development surrounded by it, it's got reflection, it's got impact analysis. And to do so, I think we draw on expertise from both outside of the organisations that we work for and from within.
One change that could happen now that would have a big effect is the universal spread of policy on public engagement. I did a survey as part of my poster for the conference today, asking some of the other public engagement ambassadors which of their universities actually had policy for public engagement, and the number that did is surprisingly small. So if there's no policy down there saying that universities have to do public engagement, why should they?
Universities have a massive wealth of knowledge, understanding and skills, which I think sometimes we struggle to share as actively as we might with communities. And I do think that universities have a public and social responsibility to ensure that their research is relevant socially and is addressing societal issues. I was really struck by an example a couple of years ago at this conference, in fact, about policy provocations, where they bring together, in this instance, health-based organisations such as the NHS, those working in the third sector in the health arena, and health-based academics to actually explore current policy issues but come up with actions that can be taken forward at policy level, regionally, nationally, and influence change, which is fantastic. That is what I think we should be doing.